Qualified immunity. Let's talk about it today on the Half a Day Show. Is this camera on me? Sorry, no, I'm just playing. Welcome to the Half a Day Show, and today we are going to talk about qualified immunity. Now, I know a lot of y'all have seen this trending on Twitter as of late regarding a lot of the cops that have been shooting unarmed black people. We are going to talk about why so many of them have been able to walk away scot-free. No legal punishment. Some of them even get to keep their job. Qualified immunity is a legal doctrine, federal legal doctrine, which protects government officials when they are doing their job improperly, right? If they are acting within a discretionary function and it does not violate any constitutional or federal law, they are covered under qualified immunity, even if your civil rights are violated. Qualified immunity came about in 1967. It was decided in the case Pearson v. Ray, Supreme Court 8-1 decision. Now, let's give you a little bit of historical context. 1967 is 3 years removed from the Civil Rights Act, which was passed by which president? Lyndon B. Johnson. 1964, passed the Civil Rights Act, right? Signed it. And then 1967, his Supreme Court ruled in an 8-1 decision that qualified immunity was a must, right? And it was meant to remove the deterrence or fear that cops would have from doing their job as a discretionary official, right? So in order to have qualified immunity, in order to violate it, you need to have two things. Discretionary function, that's one. Two is a clearly established law or right. Now, when I say right, this does not include your civil rights. Shocker, right? This does not include your civil rights, believe it or not. It protects your constitutional rights and it protects your statutory law. Every state has its own set of laws, right? Okay. So, in order for qualified immunity to not apply, they need to be acting either they need to be acting not under a discretionary function, right? Or they need to be violating your constitutional or statutory rights. Now, the language here is very important. Discretion. How many of you know that every cop has the discretion to act on any law in their jurisdiction? So, that little speeding ticket you got pulled over for, they didn't have to give it to you, but they did. When little Jimmy gets caught stealing from the corner store, he didn't have to go downtown. And he didn't. Privilege. Aside the point, right? That's discretion. Clearly established law. Anything that is ambiguous enough that a cop in good faith can say, oh, I thought that this was the law. Oh, I thought I was acting within my job description. Oh, I thought I was acting legally correct. That is not a clearly established law. And as such, they cannot violate it. And they are covered under qualified immunity. What the court just said here is that this is for the public's better interest at heart. We don't care if the judges act corrupt. No. Long as they're doing their job in good faith, no harm, no foul. And that's the type of logic they were using. So here's what they had to say about qualified immunity in 1967. So, this immunity applies even when the judge is accused of acting maliciously and corrupt, and it is not for the protection or benefit of a malicious or corrupt judge, but it is for the benefit of the public, whose interest is that the judges should be at liberty to exercise their functions with independence and without fear of consequence.
Yes, sir.
Let's unpack that. Basically, what they just said And this is how it's survived so much history. This is how it has gone to the Supreme Court and has never been overturned. Never. They covered it with this BS excuse. As long as it's for the public's greater interest, no harm, no foul. So let's apply this to police officers. If they reasonably believe that this cop or any other cop is doing their job description, acting within their job duty, the courts believe that they should not be held liable if they do their job wrong, as long as they're doing their job, because they don't want to put a hindrance on any of these cops from acting within the full limits and scope of what they can do as cops. Now, how much sense does that make? Let's level. Imagine you're a doctor and you do medical malpractice. Your ass is getting fired. Imagine you're a teacher and you don't follow the curriculum for your state or your commonwealth, whatever. Your ass is getting fired. Let me give you an example where you could get sued for doing your job wrong. Say you're a psychiatrist or somebody else that has very sensitive information on their patients, and you go out and you disclose that information. You can get sued. Qualified immunity prevents these individual cops from getting sued. However, it does not prevent the police department itself in the state which houses that police department from getting sued or paying out settlements. Give you an example. Fairfax County in 2015, they shot an unarmed black man right in his front door. The police officer that did it did not get sued. He served 5 months in jail. 5 months in jail. He was sentenced to 12, but he served 5 months in jail. However, civilly, Fairfax County Police Department was sued by the family of the man that was killed, and they made a settlement payout of $2 million. Still does not replace the life that was lost. Shame on you, Fairfax. But that's another story. Let's get back to qualified immunity. Here's another case on qualified immunity. Anderson v Creighton, 1987. So we're a little bit closer to present time. That's a little over 30 years. Just a little bit over 30 years. Y'all can check that math. I'm not sure. This is why I'm a crim major. Anyway, Anderson v Creighton. So, this was held and decided in 1987 that a federal law enforcement officer who participates in a search that violates the Fourth Amendment may not be personally held liable for monetary damages if a reasonable officer could have believed that the search comported with the Fourth Amendment. Now let's remove that legal language.
Yes, sir.
Not me. Basically, if a cop violates your Fourth Amendment rights, which protects you from illegal or unreasonable searches and seizures, right? If a cop violates your Fourth Amendment rights, they may not be held liable for violating those rights as individuals. Meaning, say you're detained or you're arrested or somebody come busting in your house without a warrant exception, without any knock, like how they did with Breonna Taylor. That cop cannot be civilly sued by yourself. You can sue the department, you can sue the state, but that cop will not be individually held liable civilly. Now, if they do violate a statutory law or a constitutional right, they can still face some criminal charges. That would be up against the state, not you. The state can press charges against them and hold them liable for those damages regarding that. But civilly, no, you're not going to get anything from that police officer. It's very unfortunate, but that comes from Anderson v Creighton. It was decided in 1987 and has not been overturned. It's 30 years ago, y'all. 30 years ago. It's all based off of reasonableness. You see this a lot in constitutional arguments. You see this in the Katz case, where they said and defined what's called a reasonable expectation of privacy, right? So here, if a reasonable cop decides that the person that violated your Fourth Amendment rights, if they believe that that act was reasonable, they will not be held accountable thanks to qualified immunity. It's deep. It's very deep. And this is where I get a little bit frustrated with the law. And it just goes to show you that it was never crafted to serve the people. It was created to be manipulated by the rich and wealthy white people that were in power drafting these laws, right? This is why representation is very important. This is why we need to start seeing a Congress, a Senate, a judiciary, an executive that reflects the greater population of America, right? 1967, white people were nowhere near close to being a minority. Look at us now. Look at us now. These laws need to be reviewed. I'd be remiss if I didn't take a second to acknowledge all the lives that we have lost within the past month, past 3 months, the past years, decade. Too many. I'm tired. So just why does qualified immunity have to go, right? I feel as though qualified immunity needs to be abolished because everybody should have another check and balance regarding their job. For the president, there's 2 other branches of government which are supposed to act as a check and balance for the presidential powers, right? For any agency or department within the United States government, there's usually a Senate review board, right? For any law that is passed, it has to be what? Voted upon. There's a check and balance for everything in government, right? So why is it that government officials such as law enforcement, prosecutors, judges get immunity from doing their job poorly? If there's a bad law, it gets outlawed. If there's a bad official, they get voted out. So if a cop is not doing their job correctly, they should be able to be held legally accountable as individuals. I don't want them just fired. They need to feel some civil penalty, right? The cops will be the first one to write you a ticket for speeding, first one to give you a parking ticket. But if they doing their job wrong, if they violating the statute, right? Oh no, they're immune. Oh no, they're covered. Don't worry about it. We'll give them we'll slap on the hand. We'll give them a disciplinary citation or something like that. In-house policing. But they'll never get fined. Rarely see jail time. No justice. The bottom line is, until qualified immunity is reviewed, reformed, or abolished, nobody's checking the police. You see it in New York. It's unfortunate. If I do my job badly, I get fired. I get written up. If I do enough damage, somebody can sue me as a representative of my job. Absolutely. So why are cops above the law? Nobody should be immune from the law. Nobody. If you're messing up, you need to be able to be held accountable. Justice is always between 2 parties, right? It's a social contract. Police officers are not immune from participating in that, right? If they violate a contract, which is disrupting the social order, I should be able to sue them. Not just the department they work for. I should be able to sue them. I guarantee you, if cops felt the economic pressure of a lawsuit, they would tighten up and do their job a lot more correctly, right? Follow me. They have families. Racist people have families. Racist cops have families. I hope so. Look, they got families to feed. They got things they want to do, goals they want to achieve. You slap a lawsuit on them every time they mess up, every time there's a bad traffic stop, every time they racially profile somebody, every time they over police somebody, every time a judge over sentences, every time. If they felt that same pressure that everybody else in America faces, go straight to the source. Go straight to the source. Qualified immunity has got to go. Nobody should be above the law. Period. And that's it for today. That's been the Half a Day Show. Qualified immunity. Special shout out to all the people that helped me get this off of the ground. All the people that have been helping me edit this video. Special shout out to my boy Trey, producing that little instrumental on the video in the beginning. You know, shout out to God above all. We're gonna have a lot more content coming to y'all on this platform. A lot of fun things, a lot of educational things. At the end of the day, I have to use what I was given, my gift, my voice. And I always tell people, look, you go to school for 4 or 5 years. You go to school for 6, 8 years, right? You got to get something more out of your degree than a job. That certificate don't mean nothing beyond a paycheck, right? Them credentials don't mean nothing beyond a paycheck. What are you doing to better your community? What are you doing to help educate others? Knowledge is meant to be shared. It was never meant to be hoarded. I'm not with the gatekeeping in higher education, right? That's part of the reason I'm going to keep elevating my education so I can give it out for free. This is the Half a Day Show, and I hope y'all share this because it's a good message. Or not. Least you could do is like and subscribe.
Yes, sir.
Where is it? Nah, it's this way, right? Yeah, like and subscribe, comment, discuss with me.